Welcome to episode 6 of Your 5 Letter Word. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to silence your inner critic. Now, we all have an inner voice or an inner dialogue, and this is really just the way that we tend to talk to ourselves. Whether we talk to ourselves nicely, with love, with compassion, or, as is the case for the majority of us, whether we talk to ourselves critically, whether we judge ourselves, whether we put ourselves down for not living up to our own expectations. Now, when it comes to our self talk, in order to start to silence this inner critic and really get to a place of peace, inner love, and acceptance, the first place to start is to just really identify what the self talk is and what your beliefs are. Often we don't actually pay attention to what we think and how we think it. We have around 90,000 thoughts a day, something like that. It's an outrageously large number. And about 90% of those are repetitive. About 90% of those are repetitive from the day before, from the day before that, from the day before that. We have thoughts that play on a loop in our minds. And so, what ends up happening is for someone who tends to have a little bit more of that inner criticism, more of that negative inner dialogue, that plays on a loop. And day after day, it plays on a loop. And because it plays on a loop, people stop noticing. It just becomes the norm, the standard that they're used to. It's just the way that they think, it's just the way that they are. It just becomes who they are. And they stop noticing. And so, really, if you're looking to silence your inner critic, the very first step is just being honest with yourself about what is happening. What kinds of thoughts are you thinking? How often are you thinking them? What is the nature? What is the tone of the way that you're speaking to yourself? Again, are you thinking about yourself in a compassionate and loving way? Or are you contributing to doubt and putting yourself down when you perhaps don't even need to? And in most cases, you don't need to. So, really, the first step is identifying what the pattern of your thoughts is and what your beliefs are. Once you've done that, once you've gone ahead and you've identified the types of things that you're thinking every day in a pattern, that's when you go the next step and you really start to think about, where is this coming from? Now, there's a few different areas where it really tends to stem from. The first being the criticism that we tend to hear from others. This is often family, friends, parents, teachers, close people to us growing up. It's the criticism that we hear from the people close to us, or the criticism that we hear frequently that then starts to get ingrained in our belief system and starts to become part of our self talk. So, if there's someone in your life that has told you multiple times that you're not good enough at something, perhaps you're too slow at something, whatever the case, over time, that becomes the thought that you think to yourself, which again, going through the loop, it becomes part of the norm and of the identity that you embody. So, really realizing where these thoughts are coming from has so much power in itself. Because when you can get to a place of understanding that, hey, I'm always doubting myself in this area, and it stems from a teacher or a parent or a friend that constantly told me this, there's power and freedom in that. Because that's not something that you personally believe per se. That's something that you've been led to believe over time, which means that you have the power to change it, which is a good thing. So, one major area is criticism that you have heard from others. Another major area of criticism and negative beliefs really stems from fear from judgment, fear from criticism, and really fear from an external reaction. So, again, this is usually the people close to us, our family, our friends, our loved ones. And it's this fear of disappointing them, perhaps. It's this fear of letting them down. It's this fear of the way that they'll react to us. And so we criticize ourselves for something that we've done that we think the other person will think negatively of us or react negatively to. So, if, for example, you're running late for work, a lot of that fear and anxiety and putting yourself down for, oh, I'm always late, I can't be on time, maybe even going down the rabbit hole of, oh, I'm so stupid, I can't get anything right. Where is that coming from? The fear of your boss getting mad, the fear of being reprimanded. Now, mind you, a lot of these fears may be valid, but understanding what is driving that self talk has a lot of power and freedom in it. That's what I want you to understand. Once you're able to start identifying your belief systems and the thoughts that you're having in a loop and really starting to understand where they come from, that's where you can then go to the next level and start to parse apart what is it that you truly believe? What do you actually believe about yourself? Versus what is something that you've just been told repetitively. And again, that seems like a very minor distinction sometimes, especially if you're new to the self development world, especially if you don't have too much practice per se with doing this stuff. But there is power in understanding your thoughts and your beliefs and their origin. Because again, when you're able to identify that a thought that you're having repetitively day after day isn't even a thought that you may believe, but it's just something that you've heard multiple times, it becomes that much easier to let it go. It becomes that much easier to rewire it and change it for something more positive. So, again, just to recap, start to notice the patterns of the thoughts that you're having. Start to pay attention to how you're speaking to yourself and whether there's specific things that you're saying on repeat. Once you pick up on what those things are, start to identify why you're thinking this. Is this something that others have told you? Is this something you truly believe? Is this something that you are reinforcing in yourself because of a fear of how someone else will respond? Once you're in a place where you have a better understanding of what you're thinking and why, that's when you are empowered to start to shift it. Because you can go through and you can try to shift your thoughts, but without the why, without that backbone of understanding, it just makes it harder. Because changing your beliefs and silencing your inner critic takes intentional effort and repetitive attempts at rewiring your belief system. And having that backbone of why will be that needed motivation to push through when it gets tough. Because it will. Because it is hard to rewire your belief system and it doesn't usually happen overnight, despite what you may have been led to believe. But again, once you're able to identify your beliefs, that's when you can then start to challenge them. And that's when you can really start to push yourself to go out of your comfort zone and do things that oppose those beliefs. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you believe that you are not worthy of trying something at work. You're not worthy of attempting a promotion. Or you're not worthy of going out and speaking in public in front of a group of people because you think you are terrible at it. Once you've identified that belief and thought about where it comes from, maybe it comes from people telling you you're not a good speaker, but you still have that desire to change. Maybe it comes from the desire to speak in public, but a fear of how other people will respond, right? Once you're at that place where you're like, okay, I know I have a fear of public speaking, but I also have this desire to change. That's when you intentionally push yourself to step outside of your own comfort zone and prove that belief wrong. The key here is to take baby steps at first. Because again, when you're having thousands of thoughts over and over, day after day, those become really ingrained in your belief system. And so challenging that can be hard. It can be hard for people to step outside and even take that first step. But really, the key thing here for you to understand is that taking that step once or twice or 3 times may not be enough. You will have to intentionally step outside of your comfort zone over and over to prove that belief wrong. But here's the catch. And here's the beautiful thing about it. Every time that you do that, every time that you give yourself evidence of this new belief system that you're working towards, you are one step closer to silencing that inner critic because you are building the amount of evidence that shows that you can do it. You are proving to yourself over and over that you are shifting away from your old belief system and into the new one. So if you're someone who has a fear of public speaking, but it's something you really love to do, perhaps you go out to a coffee shop and you start talking to people, which is outside of your comfort zone, but still baby steps. You do that 2, 3, 4 times. Now, when you go to the coffee shop, it's the norm for you to strike up a conversation with strangers. Maybe you're waiting in line and it's not a problem to share jokes and interact with people, whereas before you would get all sweaty and nervous and look the other way. Well, now perhaps you're striking up conversations with people at the grocery store, at the gym, on your way to work, at the gas station, right? You're stepping out of your comfort zone one layer further. Next thing you know, you're striking up conversations with colleagues at work that you don't tend to talk to, or you're striking up more conversations with your boss or your manager. You're developing a better relationship with them all of a sudden because the nerves and the anxiety and the self criticism has been lowered, has been diminished, and isn't there holding you back to the same extent that it used to. That's the power of this type of work. That's the power of noticing the patterns and intentionally working on shifting them. Because the more that you do it, the more that you focus on the progress that you're making, the more that you focus on the growth that you're experiencing, the more evidence will start to accumulate for this new belief, for this new identity, and the less you are training your brain to focus on the old beliefs and the old identity. Over time, this becomes easier. And again, because our thoughts are in a loop, guess what's happening? The old negative self criticism is playing less and less and less frequently, and the new self assured beliefs are playing more and more often. So there's going to be a shift, and now you have these new self empowering beliefs playing on a loop day after day that are helping you grow and progress and step outside of your comfort zone and really become this new version of yourself more and more and more deeply. But the key to this is really doing this in an honest and authentic way and just being honest with yourself about where you're at, the progress that you're making, and any challenges that you're experiencing. Because as you're doing this, as you're working to silence your inner critic, it's very important for you to acknowledge and come into this really with the understanding that this will take time. That number one, this will take time. And that number two, there will be good days and bad days. Changing your thought patterns, changing your beliefs, changing your identity, none of this is easy. This doesn't always come naturally to most people, especially when first starting out in this type of sphere. But being honest with yourself is the key here. So, again, once you've identified that this is something that you think, there's so much freedom and growth that comes from being honest with yourself, even if it's just in identifying why you believe it. There's no right or wrong answers. It doesn't matter if someone else told you this. It doesn't matter if you genuinely believe it. None of that matters, per se, as long as you're being honest with yourself about where you're at. Because that is the key. Honesty on your journey will be the key to your growth. Because when you're having a bad day and that critic acts up and that critic is a little bit louder, that's when you can be honest with yourself and have the freedom to say, hey, I'm feeling this type of way. I'm feeling nervous about speaking. I'm feeling nervous about my presentation. But I also know that some of this stems from my past. That doesn't necessarily apply to me anymore. Hey, I'm still nervous about my presentation, but at least I know moving forward that I've practiced. I've put some thought into it. I've done this before and I've survived. I'll do okay this time. That's how you go through and start shifting that inner criticism that you're experiencing in a softer way. But this softer way is extremely effective. For most people, it's not reasonable to go from, hey, I have a fear of public speaking, to I'm the greatest speaker at my workplace and I can do this no problem. There's just way too much of a disconnect there. But that slow stepping out of your comfort zone, those baby steps, those are the links to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And being honest with yourself about what baby step you're on is the key to your growth. So if you have a presentation or a meeting coming up and you're so nervous and you don't know what to do, be honest with yourself and then look at any progress. Hey, perhaps before you were having a panic attack or a meltdown because of the nerves. But now you're still nervous, but you're handling the nerves better. That is worth celebrating. That is already a shift in the right direction. Maybe next time the nerves will be a little bit less, and that's worth celebrating too. Because when you're silencing your inner critic and when you're really working on recreating the way that you talk to yourself, the key is to focus on the progress and not on the perfection and not on the criticism either. Just be honest with yourself, be honest with your growth, and make it an intentional point to focus on the things going well and to really focus on the direction of where you'd like to be instead. Whatever your inner critic is saying, in most cases, there will still be a small portion of that because everyone experiences doubt. Everyone experiences anxiety. Everyone experiences fear. But it's that people that know how to do the work, that really experience that growth and development, those are the people that see success. Because rather than letting your inner critic hold you back and shut you down and prevent you from trying, the people that know how to deal with that inner criticism, that know how to diminish and turn down the volume on it, those are the people that can move towards their empowering beliefs, towards their desires, towards their goals, towards that thing that they want to achieve. And I genuinely believe that you can do it too. I believe everyone is capable of this when they have the right tools and the right knowledge in place to do it. So, again, just to recap, moving forward, be honest with yourself about what you are thinking and about what your inner critic is saying. Start to notice where these beliefs came from. Are they genuine concerns that you have? And if they are, that's something that you can actually work towards improving to diminish that criticism itself. But if they're not genuine concerns, where are they stemming from? Is this something you've heard repeatedly? Is it fear of a specific outcome or expectation of someone else? Just be honest with yourself because there's freedom in the honesty. Then work towards what you would like your new belief to be. Intentionally put yourself into situations where you are stepping outside of your comfort zone and proving to yourself that that criticism is no longer true. The key here being to focus on the progress that you're making, to focus on the baby steps in the right direction, and that will keep you motivated and accountable for moving forward. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Before I wrap up, your 5-letter word for today is truth. Truth. Truth will set you free. Honesty with yourself about whatever you're going through will set you free. A lot of our inner criticism is really our own fears, and our fears are often an indicator of what we really desire. If you have a fear of someone's reaction, perhaps what you really desire is connection with that individual. Wherever you are in your journey, however loud your inner critic may feel, really acknowledging the truth of where you are and what your baseline is will give you the room and the freedom to start moving in the right direction. So let this be the push forward that you need to start moving in the right direction on your journey of silencing your inner critic. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know if you have any questions about anything I've stated, And as always, I'm so excited to hear about your breakthroughs. Take care.